Welcome to my channel, USA Battle Zone. Tonight, we bring you a story that will stay with you long after the last frame fades to black. A story of courage, defiance, and the heartbeat of a single pilot who refused to obey orders, and because of that, 250 U.S. Marines lived to tell the tale. The year was 2010. Afghanistan. Dust storms were sweeping across Helmand Province, painting the sky in shades of copper and blood. A Marine battalion had been deployed deep into insurgent territory, their mission, to secure a vital ridge outside Sangin, a position that could decide the safety of hundreds of American convoys below. They'd gone in strong armored Humvees, tactical drones, and the unwavering confidence of men who trusted their training. But the mission went wrong before it even began. The enemy had known they were coming. By noon, radio contact began to break up. By sunset, the ridge was crawling with Taliban fighters. By midnight, the Marines were cut off completely. No reinforcements, no extraction window, no air support. Command said the skies were too dangerous for a rescue. At Bagram Airfield, a young Black Hawk pilot named Captain Sarah Mitchell sat in the dim glow of the operations tent, listening to the scrambled radio traffic from the front line. She could hear the panic, the fading voices, the sound of men fighting for their lives. The commander's words echoed in her headset. Greater than, we've lost visual. The LZ is compromised. Stand down. No choppers are going in. But Sarah didn't stand down. She'd flown medevacs before, dozens of them, but she'd never heard voices like this. One of them, a Marine sergeant, kept coming through the static. Greater than, this is Delta 2-1. We're surrounded. Ammo's low, we've got wounded everywhere, please, anyone out there? Sarah clenched her fists. She looked around. Everyone in the tent was silent, faces pale under the red light. She made a decision. Sarah walked straight to her Black Hawk call sign ANGEL-9. Her co-pilot, Lieutenant Jason Rourke, spotted her from the hangar. Greater than, what are you doing, Cap? He called out. She didn't slow down. Getting them out. Command said it's suicide. Then I'll die trying. She strapped in, started the engines, and the rotors began to cut through the night air like the ticking of fate. Jason cursed under his breath, grabbed his gear, and climbed aboard. If you're going to hell, I'm coming with you. They lifted off into the darkness, the thundering blades echoing across the valley. The flight was supposed to take 20 minutes. It turned into a lifetime. Every ridge they crossed looked like the last. The GPS was half dead, and the enemy had night vision missiles that could take out a bird from miles away. ANGEL-9 to command, we're en route, Sarah said into the comm. The reply came cold. Greater than, ANGEL-9, you are not cleared for that sector. Return to base immediately. She looked at Jason. Turn off the transponder. He hesitated, then flipped the switch. We're ghosts now. They flew low, skimming the desert floor. Sand whipped up like smoke. The mountains rose around them like jagged teeth. Every few seconds, the warning alarms screamed radar locks, missile threats, terrain alerts, but Sarah kept her hands steady. Finally, through the haze, they saw it. The ridge, smoke, fire, dozens of flickering lights, muzzle flashes in the dark. The Marines were fighting with everything they had left. ANGEL-9 to Delta 2-1, this is Mitchell. We're coming for you. The radio crackled. Greater than, God, we thought you weren't coming. Hold your position. Light flares if you've got them. Red sparks shot into the air. She brought the chopper around, dropping fast into the valley. Bullets ripped past the windshield. Jason yelled, we're taking fire. Keep us level. Sarah shouted back. They've got wounded on the south slope. The landing zone was chaos. Explosions, tracer rounds, bodies dragging through the dirt. Sarah brought the Black Hawk down hard, the skids hitting rock. Move, 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 she yelled as Jason jumped out, waving the Marines toward the helicopter. They came running, carrying the wounded, dragging ammo crates, covering each other as the insurgents closed in. Rounds tore through the side panels. One Marine went down just feet from the chopper. Jason sprinted out, grabbed him under the arms, and pulled him in. A mortar exploded less than 50 yards away, shaking the whole valley. Sarah, we're full, we're overweight, Jason shouted. Then throw the gear out. They dumped crates, fuel cans, anything they could spare. Come on, Sarah screamed into the mic. Everyone aboard. A voice came through. Greater than. Negative. 2 squads still out there. She looked at Jason. His eyes said what they were both thinking. We can't leave them. Sarah throttled up and pulled the Black Hawk back into the sky, climbing, weaving through gunfire, engines straining under the weight. She dropped the Marines off at a makeshift clearing 2 miles back, where medics were waiting, then turned right around. Jason grabbed her arm. Sarah, we're running on fumes. I know, she said. But they're still out there. The second flight was worse. The enemy had regrouped, expecting her return. As she came back over the ridge, RPGs streaked across the sky. One exploded close enough to rattle her teeth. Warning, hydraulic failure. The console screamed. She ignored it. Delta 2-1, this is ANGEL-9, last trip. You ready? Greater than. Copy that, ANGEL-9. You're one crazy angel. Sarah dropped the chopper straight into the kill zone. The Marines were low on ammo, down to handguns and knives. The side door opened. Jason fired the mounted M240, spraying rounds to cover them. The sound was deafening. One Marine after another piled in, bloodied but alive. When the last one climbed aboard, Sarah yanked the stick back just as another RPG hit behind them, throwing a shockwave that slammed the helicopter sideways. Jason's head hit the console. He went limp. Jason, she screamed. No response. Smoke filled the cabin. The warning lights glowed red. Engine 2 was gone. Come on, she muttered, fighting the controls. The chopper lifted, groaning like a dying beast. She could see the horizon 1 mile to safety. But a hill rose up in front of her, fast. She had seconds to choose. Pull up and stall, or dive and pray. She dove. The Black Hawk scraped the rocks, sparks flying, and then somehow leveled out. The Marines cheered, but Sarah couldn't hear them anymore. Jason was still slumped forward, and her hands were shaking on the controls. Hang in there, she whispered. We're almost home. The chopper limped across the desert, leaving a trail of black smoke. When the landing pad at Bagram came into view, ground crews were already waving flares. The Black Hawk touched down hard, one engine coughing its last breath. Medics swarmed the cabin. The Marines stumbled out, pulling their wounded brothers behind them. And then, for the first time all night, silence. Sarah sat still, her eyes glassy. Jason was carried out on a stretcher alive, barely. She looked around. Every Marine she'd pulled out was alive. Battered, burned, bleeding but alive. 250 men. And one woman who broke every rule to bring them home. When command confronted her the next morning, she stood at attention, helmet under her arm. Captain Mitchell, the colonel said coldly, you disobeyed direct orders, falsified flight data, and endangered a $20 million aircraft. What do you have to say for yourself? She looked him straight in the eye. Greater than. Sir, I saved your Marines. Silence filled the room. The colonel exhaled, long and slow. Then he said, dismissed. No medal ceremony, no speeches, just a file marked classified. But word spread through the base, then through the Corps, then across the entire U.S. military. To the Marines she saved, she wasn't Captain Mitchell. She was the Angel of Helmand. Months later, when she finally returned home, the battalion was waiting for her on the tarmac. 250 Marines standing in formation, their uniforms pressed, their eyes full of gratitude. As she stepped off the plane, one of them, Sergeant Kyle Reed, the same voice she'd heard crying out over the radio that night, stepped forward and saluted. Ma'am, he said, you gave us our lives back. We'll never forget you. Sarah smiled softly. Just doing my job, Sergeant. He shook his head. No, ma'am, you did more than that. You gave us hope. That night, back home in her small apartment, she sat alone on the balcony, watching the city lights. Her hands still bore faint scars from the heat of the controls. Her flight suit hung by the door, torn and patched. She turned on the small TV. A news anchor was reading off a list of service members returning from duty. No mention of her name. But she didn't mind. Outside, a helicopter passed overhead, its sound fading into the night. Sarah looked up and whispered, "Fly safe, boys." Weeks later, she received a plain envelope in the mail, no return address. Inside was a small medal, scratched and unpolished, with a note that read, Greater than, for the angel who wouldn't give up on us. The 7th Marines. She held it tight, tears glistening in her eyes. The world might never know her story. But those 250 Marines and every family who got a son, a father, a brother back would never forget her name. This is the kind of heroism that doesn't make headlines. It doesn't get shouted from podiums or pinned on parade jackets. It lives quietly, in the heartbeat of those who refuse to let others die alone. Captain Sarah Mitchell, the pilot who ignored protocol, defied death, and saved an entire battalion. And if you believe courage like that deserves to be remembered, like, comment, and subscribe to USA Battle Zone. Because some stories deserve to live forever.